Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumo and it's always great to be on this show where we discuss all things books. I'm excited about this episode because it addresses an important part of Nigerian history. Who are the real fathers of Nigeria? A lot of young people, new generation people, will quickly call the names of Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and Tafawa Balewa, Ahmadu Bello, and all those heroes of nationalism back in the 1950s, 1960s. But that's not when the story of Nigeria started. Of course not. It's a story that started a long time before that. You have to even go long before amalgamation, 1914. Some people think that Nigeria started in 1914. Oh, no, it started long before then. But what's the true story? Or what's the story of Nigeria? How was Nigeria formulated? Who were the founders of Nigeria? Who were the brains behind the formation of Nigeria? Our guest author today is one that you're familiar with because he has been on this show before to discuss some of his previous books. And he's here once again, Dele Ogun, discussing his latest book titled CULPRITS. Now, this is a book you absolutely have to lay your hands on and read. When I read it, it blew my mind away. But let's have Dele Ogun introduce the book to us. But you might want to just get to meet with him again before we dive into the discussion or the exploration of his book, CULPRITS. Enjoy this.
Dele Ogun is a historian, publisher, lawyer, speaker, and author. Ogun joins Channels Book Club to discuss his latest book, CULPRITS.
Dele Ogun, it's nice to have you on Channels Book Club again.
Always a pleasure. My favorite program.
You are my favorite guest. Wow. CULPRITS, you've done it again.
Thank you.
Troublesome man.
I wear it well. I love the title. I love the title. I like to just stir things up a little bit.
Whatever people say, about your views, your position, and I've had people express themselves about your position and all that. Anybody who reads this book with an open mind will really enjoy it and will be blown away by many of the revelations inside. And there are many things that we all know that are also here. But I like the way you tied them together. You connected the dots and you made them make sense.
Thank you.
So well done on this. This is going to be a hit. Is it a hit already? Are you sensing that?
It is the initial reactions tell me that this is the best of the series. Why do I say that? It's actually those who believe most strongly in one Nigeria have been the first to react. And these are the ones who are allowing the light in. They have a genuine belief in the Nigeria project, so I give them credit. But they have an open mind to say, okay, tell us what you want to tell us. And in this book, I've put it all out there. And the measure for me, in terms of the impact of this book, is the dial, the one Nigeria dial. To what extent do I manage to shift it? And the initial reactions tell me that the dial has moved from here right across to here. So yes, it's a hit.
CULPRITS, the people and the paper that made Nigeria. What's this about? Let's dig in.
Well, as you know, I wrote Fatherless, a fatherless people. And the thrust of that one was to explain how we had self-governing and self-determining nations before the colonial exercise began. And that a core part of the colonial project was to render us fatherless in the sense of removing those leaders that we had that sustained all our nations before the colonials came in. That now begged the question, who rendered us fatherless. Those who rendered us fatherless are the culprits. So I wanted to introduce I won't use the word criminals. Culprits is a softer word. The culprits, those who were behind the deed by which we were decapitated? We were decapitated. And so the essence of this book is to get Nigerians to understand who the actors were, take the mask off, because the facade that was created, we have this culture of blaming ourselves, that it was the Fulani who did this, it was the Igbos who did this, it was the Yoruba who sold out. I'm taking the mask off so that we can get away from that narrative where we're holding each other by the throat and pointing fingers at each other to help to remove the screen. That's why the cover design has got that black background, almost a theater stage. And then you've got the masks, so you're seeing the black faces, and then the mask is opened up. It is an unveiling. And I'm introducing those who made Nigeria and who made Nigerians, and introducing them to those who they made, i.e. our people. That's the essence of it.
Okay, so the cover is on the screen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 men on this cover. Each of them is removing a mask, or rather, you are removing the mask on their faces.
Indeed.
Right. Now, these are the men that made Nigeria, right? We're digging into your book through your cover here.
Yes,
you're saying this men made Nigeria. Nigeria was a construct.
Absolutely. These were the founding
designed
fathers.
by some people.
Yes.
And these were the founding fathers.
These are the
Nigeria.
true founding fathers. Forget Awolowo, forget Azikiwe, forget Sardauna. These are the founding fathers of Nigeria.
Who are these men? I would like you to help viewers get a peep into your book. Who are these men who were very, very core, very, very pivotal in creating Nigeria, which we call our country today?
There's some that we are familiar with, at least by name. We have your Goldie, George Goldie. We have Lugard, Frederick Lugard.
It must be the man in the middle up there.
The outstanding character there, though, is the guy with the monocle, the eyeglass. That is Joseph
Chamberlain.
Africanus Chamberlain. Africanus was his middle name, his nickname. That's because he was the maker of Africa as we know it. Not just Nigeria, he was the colonial secretary at the time Nigeria was created on 1st of January, 1900. He was the same man who created...
Nigeria was created on the 1st of January, 1900.
That's right. He was the colonial secretary from 1895 to 1903. He was the boss of Goldie. He was the one who removed Goldie, bought Nigeria from Goldie's company, and put Lugard in place instead. He was the man behind the Ashanti War. So it's not just a Nigeria story, this guy. Behind the Ashanti War, he was the boss of Cecil Rhodes in South Africa. Yeah. So this is the main character. Also on the cover, you'll find, or in the narrative, you'll find Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was his understudy. Winston Churchill was the one who, he's inside the book.
Now, let me pretend like I don't know Tubman. I want you to speak to viewers who are really curious. Who are these guys? Who is Tubman? Tubman was the guy who owned the Royal Niger Company,
That's
right?
He was the one who had a vision of creating Nigeria. He had that vision from his first visit to the area, which was around, this was around 1890, around 1893 or so, that he first visited the area and said, I had this vision of creating this empire. He didn't have a name for it at that point. He's the one who proceeded to put the blocks of Nigeria together. What do I mean by the blocks of Nigeria? He's the one who started signing so-called treaties of protection.
With our ethnic...
With the then leaders of our ethnic groups. Now, signing a treaty suggests a voluntary consensual acts. We have to keep in mind that in many cases, our people say, we want nothing to do with you. We're running our affairs, get out of our space. Those ones will be killed, those ones will be deported, and they will be replaced by those who are more compliant.
Yeah.
So by the end of the exercise, wherever is the Benin Kingdom, wherever is the Oyo, wherever is the Tiv, etc. By the end of it, he had 400 treaties. And it's that 400 treaties that were now combined.
So the treaties basically said, you own our land, or we're giving you our land, or you are in control.
These treaties were drafted by English lawyers in the ultimate legalese. And buried inside those treaties will be a clause that said that you are giving England or giving Britain the whole of your lands.
Which at that time you are giving the Royal Niger Company, right?
This is the Royal Niger Company.
Because the British government then bought all the treaties from the Royal Niger Company.
Well, they bought the Royal Niger Company effectively.
They bought the company.
They took over. Okay, let me express it this way. The Royal Niger Company was in this enterprise of gathering land via these treaties. There came a point where British government bought the enterprise
for
850,000 pounds in those days, 865,000 pounds in those days. However, one of the important points that comes out of this book is this. Bernard Boyd made reference to that in his Another Story, 865,000 pounds. However, that was only the upfront payment. Because there was an additional clause that said that the Royal Niger Company, as part of the deal, will be entitled to 50% of all royalties on all minerals discovered in this territory.
So basically,
for 100 years.
So basically, I give you 865,000 pounds
up front.
So to own you or to own all those treaties.
Correct.
And then I say, okay, that's an upfront payment.
Yes.
For the rest of the payment, 50% of all the minerals we get in this area will go to you. For how many years?
For 100 years. And that 100 years, when was it finished? When? 1999.
Wow.
Because the deal was done 1899. This is how Nigeria was birthed on 1st of January 1900. So the upfront payment was 865,000 pounds in those days. So you have to do the adjustments. The mathematicians will do the adjustments in terms of the value of that upfront payment. But in addition, there was lawyers will call it an earn-out clause, meaning that this one runs, and it ran for 100 years.
Okay.
50% royalty on all minerals. At that point, oil had not been discovered, gold had not been discovered. Is whatever minerals were discovered in this territory for 100 years.
So Nigeria was basically a business entity. It was a business transaction.
That's right.
Basically.
That's
you
right.
even went back. There's so much to talk about. So I hope we talk about the most salient things. I do hope so. But let's keep talking. There's so many things here. Why did you pick Chamberlain? You looked at all these guys and then you picked him out, of course, because of his role and all that. But a lot of people, when they're talking about the history of Nigeria, they usually will talk, if they're not talking about Awolowo and Zik and Tafawa Balewa and Co. If they want to go back to the British, they usually will talk about Lugard.
That's correct.
But Lugard was more or less like an errand boy.
That's right.
In the whole story, was it not?
Absolutely.
So the real kingpin was Chamberlain.
He was the man, and I was lucky to stumble on to that detail. Only by accident, because when I was taken out of this country at the age of 7, the place that I landed was Highbury, Islington. And it just so happened in the course of the research, I stumbled on Chamberlain, and I noticed that in these 6-volume biography, there were constant references to Highbury. I said, surely not my Highbury, only to discover that his family house was just 5 minutes walk from my family house in Highbury. So you can imagine the connection. And then as I started digging into the guy and discovered that, oh my heavens, this guy is the boss of all the colonial operators in Africa. The colonial office was run by him, 1895 to 1903. But even after that, his legacy, and he said in the book, the mark of a great man is the ability for some of the things that he did and said in his times to continue to resonate and shape events going forward. We then discover that all the Leopold Amerys, these are colonial secretaries after him, the Winston Churchills, even the Macmillans, they all
looked up to him. He was like an icon.
He was.
The great imperialist.
He was the father of empire.
He was the one who had the vision to create that British Empire.
He was the messiah of empire.
Allow me to just move from one thing to another. I mean, they might not be on the surface related, just to get viewers to get a glimpse into your book.
Yeah.
Before the Royal Niger Company story, you established the story of the scramble for Africa. The backdrop to the creation of Nigeria was a scramble for Africa by the Europeans, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. You see, they had... Chamberlain, again, was inspirational to that because they had fought over India. They had fought over much of America. And they now decided that we're not going to fight over Africa. And Germany was now saying that, look, let's just sit together and let's just have a dialogue. Let's be civilized. And at that sitting, and the sitting lasted from 15th of November, 1884 to 26th of February, 1885. This is a 4-month dialogue deliberation with the map of Africa spread across the table to say who wants the thigh, who wants the wing, like you carve up a chicken or a turkey.
Basically shared.
Basically shared. And this is how the countries like Nigeria, that we now know as Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, etc., were all birthed. And one of the things that, the reason I write and the reason the events that I organize is to get our people to understand the story. Because a problem looks unfathomable until you understand it. Once you understand it, the solution becomes easy. But finding the understanding requires diligent research and application, and then spreading the knowledge. So the book is part of the process of spreading the knowledge. But in addition, in November coming, we're organizing this is the 140th anniversary of the Berlin Conference. As we sit here now, we're in the middle of the 140th anniversary of the Berlin Conference. Never before have Africans gathered together, leaders of thought, intellectuals, historians, lawyers, gathered together to say, what did they discuss in the course of that 4-month deliberation? In November of this year, 2025, here in Lagos, we're going to be bringing historians, leaders of thought together in conference in order to go through the minutes of those discussions, in order to better educate and better inform our people.
Do the minutes of the Berlin Conference still exist?
They do, yes.
Till now?
They do. Yeah, they always keep the records. Credit to them. All of this thing is a product of their best minds coming together to sit down. And often they were fighting yesterday, but then they would sit around the table and share knowledge, share information, to strategize going forward. What I'm trying to do through these writings is to call forth our best minds of all our ethnic groups. Stop fighting each other and blaming each other. Bring your best minds forwards. Let's sit down and let's, on the back of what we now know, strategize on the best way of repairing the damage that has been done.
You are being accused of constantly blaming the British, of avoiding taking responsibility. You are saying that people shouldn't take responsibility. You're blaming the British for all our problems. How do you respond to that?
Yes.
Because you do sound like that a lot of times.
Yeah, very true.
You know,
and
like you've got a beef against the Britons.
Oh. I can explain it this way. The Britons are my friends. You can tell from my accent that I'm like a Kemi Badenoch. But Kemi Badenoch is playing for Britain. I'm playing for Nigerians. I'm batting for Nigeria. And so I have no issue against my British friends. They know me very well. They taught me to think this way. They taught me to follow the evidence, and which is what I've done. So when they see me as saying that I'm always blaming the British, it's because of the contents that I'm sharing in this book. And I'm supporting everything that I say, because that is the British way, or I should say the Western way. They don't just talk, they back it up. Whatever you're saying, you've got to be credible. And so what I'm doing is where I make the allegations, I say, here's the evidence. But this is part of the process of taking responsibility, because you must know what you're taking responsibility for, unless one is a compound fool. To just say, I'm taking responsibility, I'm taking responsibility. So what kind of idiot is that? No, you must know where your responsibility starts and their responsibility stops. So through this book, through the work that the research and the evidence that I've brought to the table, Nigerians are now empowered to take responsibility. But that responsibility is actually to solve the problem, because what the book makes clear through the title Culprits, here are the culprits who created the problem. It's like an environmental cleanup exercise. The company has polluted the environment, but it is those who are living in that environment that have the responsibility for the cleanup exercise. That responsibility may include holding those who created the contamination, holding them to account. But first you must understand the problem. Then you take responsibility for the solution. This book is helping Nigerians, at least the ones who don't hate themselves, the ones whose confidence have not been destroyed utterly, the ones who still believe that God had made us the same way as He made everybody else, with one head, with a brain inside, 2 arms, 2 legs, and the torso. Those ones who do not buy into the narrative of white supremacy, that we are children of a lesser God. I'm speaking to those ones to say, guys and girls, let's stand up. Understand what happened first, then line up with us for the solution.
So finally, I enjoyed reading this book. I mean, really. You can see, as usual,
it's well thumbed.
As usual, I always mark. I'm always marking my books, you know. And so when you take away my book, you're taking a lot from me. I'm not just taking the book. So sometimes I just remember something in a book. I pick it up and I just flip. Likely I've marked it or underlined, so it's easy for me to find. So finally, Culprits. It's work you've done over the last few years. Finally, you've got it out. The message, you've explained it here. The people and the paper that made Nigeria. You added a byline under it, and this is on a final note. You added a byline under it, in the cover. Let my people go. What's that about?
It is biblical, not so? It is biblical. It takes us back because I need for our people to hear what we're saying. And the great books, the Bible and the Quran, has taken hold of our people's minds. So we have to speak to them in the language that they understand. And Let My People Go actually sums up the challenge, the call to the rest of the world to now say that we know what happened. What happened can't be changed, can't be undone. But we've now got to the point where we know the true story. It's now time to change the approach. We can't continue, and you cannot continue as you have been doing up until now.
I think your ideological stance is absolutely clear, and you will perpetually be at loggerheads.
I know.
with people with the other school of thought that says, hey, forget about the Brits. It's our problem. We brought this on ourselves. We have to solve this problem ourselves. But I think you've made a connection here. In this conversation that it's not about not taking responsibility. It's not about not solving the problem. It's about understanding the problem to be able to solve it properly.
Absolutely.
And I think I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they are not really divergent views,
no.
or ideologies.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's for us to solve the problem. But to solve it, you must understand it. To understand it, you must open your mind to the evidence. And once you do, and once they read the book, those who say that you're still blaming the British improperly, I'm ready for a dialogue and a conversation.
As always. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much indeed, Kule. Thanks.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Mind-blowing stuff. You just have to read Culprits. Whatever you just had now, it's just a little piece. You have to lay your hands on that book, read it. It's an exciting book. It's really, really enlightening book. Get a copy, read it, send us your ideas and your thoughts. This is where we have to end the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.